Okay, folks. So as you know, the test will be available this Friday, Thursday and Friday. So you can take it as early as Thursday at 6 a.m. and it's going to be available till Friday at 11:59 p.m. Once you started, you have an hour to complete it. Most people will be done in about 15 minutes or so. So you have plenty of time, lots and lots of time. Make sure that once you start the test, you don't exit it until you are done with the test. So don't say, well, I'm going to take a break, and you log out of it and then you want to come back. You're not going to be able to do that. So just take your time, finish the test, submit it. Once you submit it, immediately you're going to have the grade available to you. So it's instantaneous. However, if you want to see the correct answers, they will be released on Saturday. So you have Thursday and Friday to take it, and then Saturday I'm going to release all the answers. I've already done this. It's already set up. And then on Monday, I'm going to go over the test. So I'm going to have kind of like a review for the makeup exam. For whoever wants to take the makeup exam, you don't have to take the makeup exam. If you're happy with what you have, then good for you, and you can move on to other things. But if you want to take the makeup exam, definitely, come to my review on Monday. I'm also going to post it again. And then next, not this Saturday, not this Thursday and Friday, the following week, on Thursday and Friday, we're going to have the makeup exam. Okay, so actually, all my exams take place on Thursdays and Fridays. So test one makeup, test two makeup, and final. And remember that between test one and test one makeup, I only take the higher of the two grades. And the same for test two makeup, I only take the higher of the two grades. So you're not risking your grade by taking the makeup exam. Okay. Questions so far? No. Okay, good. Then, okay. Hi, Jack. Then I guess we can start with the review. So I just took a look at the test. I didn't take it. I didn't take the test. I'm going to have to take the test because yesterday I took the macro test. And apparently I have 4 wrong answers on the macro test. So I'm going to have to change the answer from C to D and so on, because I was getting 84%. So obviously I'm going to have to do the same for you guys. Take the test, make sure that only the right answers, I get the correct answers. But I opened up the test just to take a look at it. And so I can do the review. When I do the review, I am relevant. I don't talk about God knows what, and then the test is completely different. So I want the review to be relevant. Okay, so let's start with chapter 2. In chapter 2, we talked about opportunity cost and production possibilities curve. Now, opportunity cost is whatever you're giving up for doing something. So if you are here with me, you cannot be doing something else. So that's your opportunity cost. And it varies from person to person. So even though all of us may be here doing a Zoom session, we all have different opportunity costs because we would have done different things. Okay. Now, production possibilities curve, the PPC. I showed you 2 types of PPC. One was a constant opportunity cost, and one was increasing opportunity cost. So with the constant opportunity cost, we're going to have a straight line PPC. And with increasing opportunity cost, we have bowed out PPC. So constant like this and increasing opportunity cost like that. We know that whether it's constant or it's increasing, it doesn't matter. What is significant, what the significance of the PPC is that it shows us the maximum that can be produced, given that we have limited resources. So we can produce at anywhere on the PPC, whether it's a constant or increasing, we can produce on the PPC. We have the resources. We can produce inside of the PPC at a point inside of the PPC, but we can do better than that because we can produce on the PPC. So inside is inefficient when we produce at a point that is inside a PPC. When we produce on the PPC, that's efficient. And outside of the PPC, it's impossible right now. We don't have the resources right now. In the future, they may become available and this PPC will probably shift. So points that are out of our range, we cannot achieve them because we don't have the resources. They may become definitely points that will be achievable sometime in the future. Okay, so that's the story on chapter 2. Very, very simple. Okay. Now let's get to chapter 3 and 4, where we talk about supply and demand. And here I would like a little bit of participation because I'm going to focus on what causes a change in supply, what causes a change in demand, and changes in the quantity demanded and changes in quantity supply, because those are huge differences. Huge difference between a change in demand or a change in quantity demanded, a change in supply or a change in quantity supply. Folks, let's say that I say to you, let's say that this is a question on a test. The price of coffee goes up from $5 a pound to $10 a pound. What happens to the demand for coffee? Anyone? So if the price of coffee goes up from $5 to $10, what happens to the demand for coffee?
No change, Professor.
No change. Very good. That's the correct answer. There is no change. It's the quantity demanded that changes. So here it is. Let me draw a demand curve. And we'll see what happens. Here's a demand curve. If the price of coffee goes from $5 to $10, at $5, quantity demanded is this quantity here, Q1, and at $10, quantity demanded is this quantity here, Q2. So what changes is the quantity demanded. The demand itself, which is this line, does not change. You move from one point on the demand curve to another point on the same demand curve. So make sure that if the price changes, demand does not change, supply does not change, is quantity demanded. So in the case of a demand curve, if the price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. If the price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. If we're looking at a supply curve, if the price goes up, quantity supply goes up. If the price goes down, quantity supply goes down. But a change in the price will not change the supply, will not change the demand. It will move you from one point to another point on the supply curve. It will move you from one point to another point on the demand curve. What changes demand? Well, other things have to change, things other than the price. Price is the only thing that cannot change demand, cannot change supply. What changes demand? Changes in preferences. Suddenly, if people like a product a lot more than before, they will purchase more regardless of the price. In other words, at this price, before they were buying this quantity, now they're going to buy this quantity. If the price was this price here, before they were buying this quantity, now they're buying this quantity. If the price is here before they were buying this quantity, now they're buying this quantity. In other words, it's the whole demand curve that changes. In that case, when it shifts to the right, it's an increase in the demand. People will buy more regardless of the price. And obviously, a decrease in demand is when it shifts to the left. Okay. And for the supply curve, the same thing. If something other than the price changes that causes firms to produce more, the supply will shift to the right. And if something causes firms to produce less, the supply will shift to the left. Now, so what causes a change in demand? Change in preferences, change in incomes, and change in prices of related goods. Related goods are substitutes and complements. Just to give you an example. If the price of milk goes up, what's going to happen to the demand for cereal?
Goes down.
It's going to go down. So what is happening step by step is this. When the price of milk goes up, the demand for milk does not change. But what changes is the quantity demanded for milk is going to go down. So people will buy less milk. And now that people are buying less milk, they don't need to buy as much cereal. So people will buy less cereal regardless of the price of cereal. So it's the whole demand for cereal that shifts to the left. When the price changes, the demand does not change. When the price of milk went up, the demand for milk did not go down. The demand for milk stayed the same. Quantity demanded change, it went down. Therefore, people bought less. Therefore, people don't need to buy as much cereal, regardless of the price of cereal. So people will buy less cereal, whether the price of cereal is here or here or here, they will buy less. So you have a whole shift in the demand for cereal. This demand curve is no longer valid. There's a brand new relationship between price and quantity demanded, and that's this one here. Very good. Now, I also said if income change, then the demand will change. If our incomes go up, the demand for most goods will go up. The more money we make, the more of most goods we're going to buy. The less money we make, the less we're going to buy. Okay. That goes for most goods, which are called normal goods. But there are also a few goods which are called inferior goods, where it goes exactly the opposite way. The more money we make, the less of those goods we buy. The less money we make, the more of those goods we buy. And obviously examples would be generic brands. So you make more and more money, you're not going to buy generic brands. Top ramen or stuff like that. As you're going to be making millions and millions, you're going to stay away from top ramen. Okay. Or maybe lotto tickets. You know, you make a ton of money, you don't play lotto anymore. Those are called inferior goods. Okay. All right, folks. What changes supply? We know that the change in the price of the product does not change supply. It just moves you from one point on the supply curve to another point on the same supply curve. So here's supply. If the price changes, quantity supply changes. Price changes, quantity supply changes. But the supply itself does not change. For the supply to change, we would have to have a change in the costs of production. If the costs of production go up, supply is going to shift to the left, is going to decrease. And when the cost of production go down, supply is going to increase. And I think the example that I used in my class lecture was, we imagine that you have a factory and you employ workers and you pay them $15 an hour because that's the minimum you can get away with. And then suddenly minimum wage goes to $30 an hour. Well, what are you going to do? Chances are you're going to lay off some workers. Well, if you're laying off some people, that means that you're not going to be able to produce as much as before. In other words, you will produce less regardless of the price of the product. So if the price of the product was here before the wages went up, you are producing this much. Now with fewer workers, you're going to produce less because you cannot produce as much with fewer workers. What if the price of the product was here? Well, before and after. Here, before and after. We have a brand new supply curve. Supply shifted to the left. It decreased. Okay, so costs of production are impacting supply. Preferences, incomes, and prices of related goods are changing demand. But the price doesn't change supply, doesn't change demand. All right. We know, for example, another thing, that there are price controls. Price controls is when the government comes in and they decide that they want to change that equilibrium price. Again, I'm talking all the time about equilibrium price. It's very possible that on a test, they refer to equilibrium price as market clearing price, but it's the same thing. So they say market clearing price, I say equilibrium price. Well, that's the price where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. So it's the same thing. But if the government wants to impose a price floor that changes the price, the floor has to be above equilibrium. So the price floor will impact the market. Here is the equilibrium price. A price floor will only impact the market if it's above equilibrium price. If they put the price floor below, it has no impact on the market. This will be the prevailing price. This will be the prevailing quantity. So if you want to impact the market, you got to put the floor on top and the ceiling on the bottom. And notice that a price ceiling leads to a shortage, quantity demanded, quantity supplied. Quantity demanded greater than quantity supplied, that means that there's a shortage. And a price floor will lead to a surplus, because at this price, quantity supplied is this number here, and quantity demanded this number. So the difference between them is a surplus. Okay. Also, you will have questions about changes in supply and changes in demand. When supply changes, supply only changes, or demand only changes, you're going to be able to determine what happens to the new equilibrium price and quantity. Okay. So let's change supply. Supply, demand, let's say that supply goes up. Well, all I got to do is shift the supply to the right. We have a brand new supply curve. And this is no longer the equilibrium price and quantity. This is the new equilibrium price and quantity. And I can easily see that price is going down and quantity is going up. So if the question was, well, what happens if the supply goes up? Well, you just draw a graph on a piece of paper, and then you say, based on this, oh, price goes down, quantity goes up. when only supply or demand change one at a time, you can determine what happens to both price and quantity. But if both supply and demand change at the same time, you're not going to be able to determine what happens to one of them. So if you determine that quantity goes up, then price is definitely going to be indeterminate. If you determine that price goes down, then quantity is indeterminate. So if you know where the price is going, then you're not going to know where quantity is going. It's going to be indeterminate. It could go up, it could go down, it could stay the same. If you know where the price, quantity is indeterminate. If you know where the quantity is going, then price is indeterminate. So on a question where both supply and demand change at the same time, you can immediately eliminate any answers that says a price is going in this direction and quantity is going in that direction, because it's impossible to determine that. If price is going that way, quantity is indeterminate. If quantity is going one way, price is indeterminate. And how did I say that we should do those type of problems? I said you should do those type of problems with two separate graphs. You change the price, the supply, see what happens to price and quantity. On the other graph, you change the demand, see what happens to price and quantity. Then you put the two graphs together and you're going to see that in those two graphs, one of the variables, either the price or quantity, is consistently going in one direction. So you know where it's going, but the other one will move into opposite direction, going up from one graph, going down from the other graph. That's the one that's indeterminate. So real fast, I'm going to do an example. Let's suppose we have supply goes up, demand goes down. No problem. One graph. I'm going to change the supply. It went up. And immediately we can see that price went down, quantity went up. So I write down price down, quantity up. Then I do exactly the same thing, but for the demand, where I change the demand. So you have a graph, supply, demand, and demand goes down. So I shifted demand to the left. Now you take a look and see that price is definitely going down. Quantity is also going down. So you write price goes down, quantity goes down. Now you see that price is definitely from both sides going down. So price is going to go down, but quantity, I don't know, is going to be indeterminate. I don't know where it's going to end up. All right. Let's talk about elasticity. Okay. So let me give you, first of all, the formula for elasticity. Formula is this. The percentage change in Q given a percentage change in price. Elasticity has values from 0 to infinity. And we know that if it's between 0 and 1, it's inelastic. If it's greater than 1, it's going to be elastic. Now, on one of the quizzes, I gave you the elasticity, which was 0.75, and I gave you the percentage change in price or quantity. Which one was it? Was 30? Okay, it was the percentage change in price. So one of the on the elasticity quiz, it was problem number 1, I believe, and said elasticity equals 0.75, and the percentage change in price is equal to 30%. And the question was what's going to be the percentage change in quantity? Well, you have the formula here. So if 0.75 equal percentage change in quantity divided by 30%, the percentage change in quantity is equal to 30% times 0.75 was equal to 22.5%. You just multiply. I mean, it's, if I give you this and this, you can calculate the elasticity. If I give you this and this, you can calculate the percentage change in price. And if I give you this and this, you can calculate the percentage change in quantity. Okay, so I got to give you 2 out of the 3. Now, it could be that on a test, and for sure you're going to have a problem like this, where I give you 2 prices and 2 quantities. And I say, calculate the elasticity on that segment using averages. And the formula then becomes this one. So I don't give you the percentage change in quantity. Don't give you the percentage change in price, but I give you 2 prices and the quantities associated with those 2 prices. Then the formula for elasticity becomes the change in Q divided by the average of the 2 Qs divided by the change in P divided by the average of the 2 Ps. The quiz also had 1 or 2 questions where you had to calculate the elasticity using this formula. So let's do a quick one. Let's say that at P1 equal $8, Q1 is equal to 100 units. And if price goes up to $10, quantity goes down to 60 units. Let's calculate the price elasticity of demand over that segment using this formula. Well, you're going to do the change in Q. The change in Q is 40. Divided by the average of 60 and 100, that's 80. And the change in P is 2 divided by the average of 8 and 10, that's 9. So then you can crunch the number on a calculator. I usually try to work them out as much on paper as I can. So it's equal to 18 divided by 8. So what is that? 2 point what? 2.2. Anybody with a calculator? So it's 2 point something. And that would be the answer. Are you okay with this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, here's a hint for something. Folks, when we're looking at 2 goods, and I'm asking which one has a demand that is more elastic, it's going to be the good that has the more substitutes a good has, the more elastic the demand of that good. The fewer substitutes, the less elastic. So how do you think that the demand for gasoline is? Elastic or inelastic?
Inelastic.
Inelastic, right? Inelastic, because there are no substitutes. But if I ask, well, how's the elasticity for Pepsi Cola? Well, then you're going to say it's elastic. Why? Because it has a lot of substitutes. See, if I had said, which one is more elastic, the demand for cola or the demand for Pepsi Cola? And the answer would be more elastic is Pepsi Cola because it's a brand and there are many other brands. But for cola in general, there are no substitutes. Another determinant of elasticity is the amount of time that we allow to pass. In other words, in the short run, the demand is going to be less elastic, and in the long run is going to become more elastic. So if in the short run, the price elasticity of demand for something is 1.5, in the long run is going to be more than 1.5, because remember, the higher the number, the more elastic. Why is it that in the long run it's more elastic? The reason is because we are able to find substitutes. The more time you give us, the more substitutes we're going to be able to find. So in the short run, if the price of gas goes up, not much is going to happen. Quantity demanded is going to go down, but not by very much. But in the long run, now we're going to create cars that have better, they're electric. We're gonna find people to carpool with, and so on. So in the short run, there's not going to be a big impact. That the fact that the price of gasoline goes up is not going to impact the quantity very much. But in the long run, as we find more and more substitutes, quantity demanded is going to be impacted more and more. So it's going to become more and more elastic. The number becomes bigger and bigger. Okay. All right. So remember, if in the short run elasticity is 2, in the long run is more than 2. Okay, folks. Let's get to consumer optimum, consumer choice. Now you're not going to have a problem like I did on the test, on the quiz. I'm sorry. Remember that problem where I gave you the consumer optimum? I said it's 4 and 4, and then I said I'm going to give you the price of a hamburger, but I'm not going to give you the price of a movie, and calculate the income of that person. Okay. I went over this, and I'm going to go over it again. Although you're not going to have it, so who cares? Anybody, do you remember how I did it? The way I did it was I calculated, so the problem gave you total utility for different quantities of hamburgers. And then I created another column that was marginal utility. And then because they also gave me the price of a hamburger, I could calculate the marginal utility per dollar. So I had a column that said marginal utility per dollar for a hamburger. I started to do the same for movies because they gave us total utility. And then you calculate marginal utility. But then we had a problem because they didn't give us the price of a movie. So you couldn't do marginal utility per dollar. However, they told us that we already know what the consumer optimum was. It was 4 hamburgers and 4 movies. And you know that at consumer optimum, the marginal utility per dollar on the last hamburger has to be equal to the marginal utility per dollar on the last movie. So remember that MUX divided by piece of X is equal to MUY divided by piece of Y. And guess what? If you look at what was the marginal utility per dollar at the last hamburger, it was 5. So we know that marginal utility per dollar on the 4th movie is also has to be equal to 5 because it's consumer optimum. And the only way we could get 5 in that column was by dividing 20 by the price of a movie, and it has to be equal to 4 because only 20 divided by 4 is equal to 5. So that meant that the price of a movie had to be equal to 4. And since at consumer optimum, I'm consuming 4 hamburgers and 4 movies, that means that the income has to be equal to 20 because I'm spending $16 on movies and $4 on hamburgers. And we know that at consumer optimum, all income has to be spent. So that's how you problem. But you're not going to have something like that on it. you're going to have to know, well, what are the two conditions of consumer optimum? And one is that all income has to be spent, and the other one is MUX divided by piece of X has to be equal to MUY divided by piece of Y. Now, folks, on this last quiz, because I know that I went over this topic with somebody in class, we had something like this. You have a consumer optimum. So that means that we have MUX divided by piece of X equal MUY divided by piece of Y. Okay. And then they said something like this. Well, let's suppose that the price of X goes down. What should you do? So basically what they're saying is this piece of X changes. It becomes smaller. It goes down. Well, if that's the case, the value of this fraction here becomes bigger. I get more bang per buck from X than I'm getting bang per buck on Y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to purchase more X. I'm going to buy more X. And how long am I going to buy more X? Until what is happening to the marginal utility, so I'm buying the 5th hamburger, the 6th hamburger, the 7th hamburger. What is going to happen to the value of each one of those? It goes down. So as this guy, so what happened, this guy went down initially. As that guy went down, I start buying more X. And that means that the value of each additional X that I'm buying is going down. I get less and less and less pleasure from each additional unit. And that means that this value is going to go down. And that's going to happen until they are going to be equal to each other. Because when initially, let's leave the marginal utility alone. When initially only the price changed, we had a situation like this. When the price went down, this guy was bigger than that guy. But then I start buying more X, and the value here starts going down and down until they become equal to each other. To put some numbers in, because to give you the perspective, let's say you have something like this. Whoa. It worked. Okay. Now, this represents the price of X. And it goes down. So now we have 6 divided by 1, because it went from 3 to 1, is greater than 10 divided by 5. I start buying more X. As I buy more X, the marginal utility from each additional unit, so the amount of satisfaction that I get from each additional unit starts going down. And as it goes down, this changes until it becomes, again, at optimum. Okay. So this is what would happen. Okay. So remember that you need that MUX divided by piece of X equal to MUY divided by piece of Y. So if the price changes, if the price goes down, you want to buy more of it. If the price goes down, you want to buy less of it. Let's see. So it's, yeah. One more thing about elasticity. And you can probably, well, actually it's open book, because, if it's inelastic, and you wanna, what would you wanna do if people are insensitive? Inelastic means insensitive to price changes. You are the producer and you know that people are insensitive to your prices. Would you increase or decrease the price?
Increase.
Increase.
Increase the price, right? So they don't care about prices, I'm gonna jack up the price. So when it's inelastic or people are insensitive, if price goes up, total revenue go up, price goes down, total revenue go down. Which means that if it's elastic or people care about prices, then if price goes up, total revenues go down, and price go down, total revenue go up. So it might be a good idea to write this down. When it's inelastic, price up, total revenue up, price down, total revenue down. And then immediately you follow with elastic, which is going to be the opposite. And when it's unit elastic, when elasticity is equal to 1, you don't want to increase the price, you don't want to decrease the price because total revenues are maximum. Okay. So if you change the price, you either increase or decrease the price, total revenues will go down because you are already at maximum. So any change in the price will only cause you to go down from that maximum. All right, so that's about it. 25 multiple choice questions. Like I told you, you're gonna be done in no time, like 15, 20 minutes. And hopefully most of you won't even take the makeup exam, but you cannot screw up your grade by taking the makeup exam. But I think maybe you should go to a movie or something, rather than my makeup exam. Although I was rather disappointed. I went last week to to see two movies, and I basically walked out from both of them after about 45 minutes. So, but I told you, I have those passes. I can unlimited movies. Any questions, any comments? Let me stop the recording. So at this point, my advice is, how should you study for this?